Good morning, Odell.
Hey, good morning, John. How are you?
I'm okay. A little puzzled, but okay.
You got a puzzle?
When I first signed in here about 20 minutes ago, there was a student there, and I turned his microphone on and greeted him. And the next thing I know was after about 10 minutes, he left. Maybe he's going to come back. I don't know. But
Yeah, probably came in too early. That's all.
yeah. I'm surprised though. Here we are at 5 minutes till. There's nobody here yet.
Oh, there isn't?
No.
Oh, I didn't pay any attention.
That's okay. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm up.
Sue is jetting her way to Paris as we speak. So
Really?
on our flight between Iceland and France.
Back she goes, huh?
Out she goes. So how are things in your world?
They're going slow, but they're going.
Good. How the preps for Search Mastery going?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Monday, I'm going to go ahead and schedule something for us to kind of walk through. Really, I think to me, I think to me, really, with Search Mastery, what I've learned with sitting with Josh is that was my train the trainer.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely correct. That was your trainer. So, and that's like I said. Obviously, it was. I got somebody here. So,
Okay.
Hey, Mathis, this is John. Welcome to class.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Is it afternoon or what time is it?
It's about 10 o'clock here in Sweden. So, but
Still morning.
yeah, exactly.
Excellent. So, well, welcome. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Hopefully, in about 5 minutes. I want to start about 1 minute after the hours, just so you're aware.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks.
That's perfect.
Hey, Alistar, this is John. Welcome to class. If I didn't pronounce your name correctly, please let me know.
No, that's perfect. Thanks very much.
Very good. And Alistar, where are you taking the class from geography-wise, sir?
The UK.
UK. Very good. I should start up here in a couple minutes, so just relax. If you want to grab a cup of coffee or tea, feel free.
A copy in my hand right now.
All right, excellent. Hey, good morning, Jonathan. Welcome to class.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm all right. It's not as early as it is for you. What is it, 4 in the morning for you?
5, actually. It's not bad.
5. Oh, it's not as bad.
It's 4. It's 4 in the morning for Odell.
Where's he?
Sorry?
Chicago.
Yeah.
That's an early start. Thank you for being online that early.
Yes, sir. No worries.
I've got a guy who works for us who's based out in the West Coast, and a lot of the people he works with are either in Stockholm or the UK. And I continually find myself apologizing for starting really, really early meetings with him because it's just what we end up having to do.
It is the global world we live in. You know, we've got teammates in India. And so how do you schedule a good meeting between, that and that? And most of the folks on our team are on the West Coast of the US. So it's they are literally half a world away.
Yeah, indeed.
Hey, Jonathan, I see there's 2 of you signed in, and that's fine if you've got a colleague joining us or you're on 2 machines.
No, I got kicked temporarily and I came back in. So should I just leave and try again?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure if to have the names reflect who's there so I could call it by the right name.
No, it's just me.
Good deal. All right. Well, folks, I have got time here to go. So That could be muted. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yep. All right, and Ulf, okay, good morning,
Yes,
sir.
morning,
Welcome.
John. Morning, everyone.
You and I didn't get a chance to rehearse this. Did you want to do the slide deck for the EMEA stuff, or do you want me to do it?
You can do it. That's fine.
Very good. Okay. All right. Well, I've got a couple minutes after the hour. Everybody's here. What do you say we get this party started? Welcome, Daniel. Let me turn on my recording. Apparently the recording's still going on. Okay. All right. Let's make sure we've got the chat stuff all cleared up. All right. You click that. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 2 of the Sumo Logic EMEA Search In. So, my name is John Meredith. I was your instructor yesterday. I'm your instructor today. And I am based in the United States, specifically on the East Coast. So the sun has not come up. That's why my room is a little dark. My office is a little dark this morning, but don't worry, we'll get through this. And I just want to welcome you. My only ask is that if you've got a question, please feel free to ask your question. Don't be bashful. We've got a bunch of teammates here to help you out. So besides myself, there's Odell and there's Ulf. Yesterday, of course, Taffy joined us, but wanted to give Ulf a chance to say hi and introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Ulf Andreasson. I've been working with Sumo for the last 4 years, and based in Sweden, but working sort of throughout EMEA. So pretty much anything that moves sort of here in the European region. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much me. I mean, as John said, Taffy was helping out yesterday, so I'm going to do that today. And any questions, then just, use the chat, use the Q&A, or even send me an email if that's an easy way of doing it. But yeah, we're here to help. And the sun is up here.
Very good. And Odell, do you want to say hi?
Good morning and welcome. Hope you guys have an excellent class. Ask questions. There's plenty of information that John has, and we're here to support you. And although it looks like it, the sun is not up yet here, but thanks all for letting me know. I got something to look forward to.
Okay, excellent. So as we've mentioned yesterday, we have found through lots of research, actually, that if you take the time to attend the training and you take the time to do the certification, that you really wind up using the tool more, and you use the tool much more effectively. So these classes that we offer, and they're free, they will hopefully help you in doing the things that you need to do. Now, the focus for today's class is going to be on security and security analytics. So yesterday we gave you a harbor tour of things, but today we're going to go into a bit more deep dive on security and security focus. But we have found, like I said, the certifications just wind up being a big help to enabling customers to be successful. And that's our goal. We want you to be successful. Again, we are represented today by 22 companies in 17 cities in both the DevOps area as well as the security area. So that's what our registration tells us. And otherwise, we're going to get going here. Fundamentals we did yesterday, and like I said, a lot of you took the test and passed, and yay. We're going to do a similar exercise today. We're going to be focused on cloud security monitoring and analytics. So Sumo Logic is really known for probably 2 things. We have complete observability throughout our products, your environments, things like that. So whether you're running on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, whatever, on-prem, you can see across your environments to see how things are going, and you can use that to troubleshoot and all that. The other thing we're noted for is for our security. And we've got basically a couple of phases of security here. One, which is compliance. We obviously provide a little information about compliance. We also provide a bit of information here about writing and creating queries to understand what's going on with your security. Who's logging in, where they're logging in from, if there are issues with people logging in, stuff like that you'll see in this class. And then we also have a cloud SIM product, SIM standing for Security Information and Event Management. And it's really a very powerful tool that allows us to take lots and lots and lots of records, and it synthesizes them together and generates signals of interest. And it correlates those signals of interest by host name, IP, computer name, whatever, so that we can see if there's some activity going on, some suspicious activity, and you can be alerted on that and resolve those issues. So something to think about. As we mentioned yesterday, if you do take the test, you can apply for an Uber Eats voucher or a Swiggy voucher. The Swiggy voucher is for the folks in India. And so there's actually a form here that we'll put this link in the chat box. For those of you who took the test yesterday and didn't get a chance to do your voucher, like I said, you can actually put both certifications on the same voucher, the same form here, if you will. So we'll provide that link for you. One thing I will mention to you is that we're having an interesting issue right now. And typically we're finding that the process here takes about a business week. So from the time you submit it to the time we provide you the Uber Eats vouchers, it's probably taken a good business week here. And I won't bore you with the details as to why, but suffice to say, we'll get it squared away. All right, yesterday I showed you this slide, and it was pretty inaccurate. So it had classes back in January and February, and I apologize for that. But here is the updated slide. Here is where our classes are. In a few minutes, I'll take you and show you where you can see what classes we have and if you want to register for them and that sort of thing. We typically, when we do these classes, we actually run 2 sessions, just so you're aware. We run one session here for predominantly the US East Coast, which is why it's very late your time. And then we want to run 3 hours later, I'm sorry, about 6 hours later for the US West Coast. So I picked the US East Coast time. They're probably more friendly for you all. And but you can see we've got a wide variety of classes here being offered for you. And of course, if you haven't already done so, and if you're using Slack, we encourage you to join our slack.sumologic.com channel so that you can be part of the conversations and you can reach out to your friends here at Sumo for questions, issues, things along those lines. And that is that for the overall introduction. Any questions? Any questions at all? All right. So we got a few folks here. Everybody's got their mics enabled. Again, as we go through things, feel free to ask your questions. That's what we're here for. So our focus today is Sumo Logic, cloud security, monitoring, and analytics. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this is, and we're going to basically jump right into some labs, and we're going to play with some labs. Now, it does indicate there's going to be a break here between labs 1 through 5 and 6 through 8. I don't know when I'm going to do the break. I'll do the break probably in about an hour. So I'm not sure which lab will be on at the time. I will tell you the first couple labs start kind of slow because we've got a lot of material to cover. And once we get through those labs, that things pick up very nicely. But in this case, we are going to build a dashboard. That is going to be our goal. And then ultimately, of course, at the end of this, you'll be able to take your newfound knowledge and be able to take the certification exam for this course, just like you all had the opportunity to do yesterday. And of course, we're promoting the Uber Eats voucher, which I've got to actually update that slide, but I will. Again, those of you with us yesterday, you recall that Sumo Logic is used for both operational intelligence, right? How is my environments doing? What services are running? What services are not running? I want to see what's happening. I can also use it to look at my security, where my users logging in from, what operating system, what computers, what kind of activity is going on my firewall. Am I getting any malware attacks? Things along those lines. Then we can obviously look at things from a business intelligence perspective. What are my customers purchasing? What are they looking at my website? You know, that sort of thing. And then finally here, global intelligence at a very high level. We can look across operational intelligence, security intelligence, and business intelligence, like I said, at a very high level across the globe. And so, for example, if our customers, if AWS guard duty tells us there's an attack going on in the world, we can see, you know, maybe who is impacted or how that's being impacted. So again, that's at a very high level. As far as your data, again, your data comes from a wide variety of sources, various applications, maybe some microservices on the cloud. Maybe you're using Salesforce or Office 365, some software as a service. Of course, who doesn't run things on mobile devices these days, as well as various third-party apps? We don't care where your data is. We don't care where your logs and metrics are, but we can ingest them into Sumo, and so that you can build queries and build dashboards to see exactly what's happening, provide that layer of transparency. As far as Sumo Logic is concerned, we are born in the cloud. We are raised in the cloud. We support multi-tenancy. We scale up and scale out as necessary to support you. And again, we kind of do it behind the scenes. You'll find that we've got a bunch of machine learning and advanced analytics in our product. We saw that a little bit yesterday when I showed you a little log reduce and some other things. Again, in the Search Mastery class, we get into a lot more detail on that. We also have a series of APIs, application programming interfaces, which are basically going to allow you or somebody in your organization to make a series of API calls to do things like create collectors, to do things like run queries, to do things like change permissions, create users, whatever. All that stuff can typically be done through our APIs. And our APIs, by the way, are well documented in our documentation. You know, yesterday I showed you that documentation. Today I'll show it to you again. Finally, over here, this is our crown jewel, our security and monitoring, right? We work with great rigor to maintain our various certifications and compliances. So we are SOC 2 compliant, CSA Star compliant, PCI compliant. Again, not that you probably care in Europe, but we are FedRAMP moderates authorized in the United States. So various certifications that we maintain with great rigor. And then finally, of course, your role, you know, how you use Sumo. It's basically got something for everybody. So regardless whether you're in DevOps, or you're in SecOps or whatever, you can ingest your logs and metrics and you can see what's going on. Pure and simple. Now, as I alluded to at the start, when you think about security, at least we think about security, there are really three tiers to security. One, you have a obligation to your shareholders, your stakeholders, that sort of thing, to maintain, ensure that you are maintaining your compliance, various audits and stuff like that. Again, one of the nice things about Europe that I like is the GDPR and the privacy and stuff associated with that. But again, that's an extra layer of compliance that you have to ensure. And so we have a bunch of built-in apps, built-in dashboards that you can install to see how you're doing with regards to your compliance. Also, perhaps do some auditing capabilities, you know, as a double check to make sure that things are happening the way that you want them to. Now, our focus in this class isn't going to be so much on the audit and compliance. It's going to be on the security analytics. Here, we're going to write queries to see where our users logging in, who's failing to log in, those sort of things. And at the end of this exercise, if you're running on AWS CloudTrail, you can take the dashboard that we create in class. We'll show you can export it out and you can import it into your environment. So we'll actually talk about that throughout the class. And then finally, we also have a Cloud SIM product. Again, SIM standing for Security Information and Event Management. And this Cloud SIM product, as I mentioned, is a very powerful tool that ingests lots and lots of records, takes those records, generates signals, and then from those signals, it correlates them by basically the IP address, the host name, you know, the system name, whatever. So we can see exactly and make it very easy for an analyst to understand the kind of activity that's happening so they can focus on resolving any security threats and issues. So that is our security suite. And obviously, like I said, we're going to focus on this area here today. We do have classes for our Cloud SIM product as well. And in fact, we just got done teaching those last month. So when we think about security analytics, we tend to think about creating and writing queries, creating searches, right? Some sort of a query to get the results that we're looking at. This query will result in probably some sort of a visualization. Could be a map, could be a bar chart, could just be tabular data. But we're going to take the result of this query and we're going to add it to a dashboard. And we're going to build our dashboard with a multitude of queries to help us out. And in the process, of course, we'll use a bunch of different operators from a bunch of advanced analytics, like the geo lookup operator, where we can use it to build maps and mapping information. So we'll see some various queries and various functions, all kinds of good stuff here. Any questions so far? Okay. Let me do a quick little demo, just to give you an idea of what we can do here with Sumo Logic. And again, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to log in. In fact, I prefer that you not log in because you don't have access to this demo environment. So let me switch over here to my Sumo Logic demo environment. And here in my demo environment, I can go in here and here under my security demo, you'll see that I've got dashboards for AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. I'm going to pick on the one for AWS. And let me close up all the other tabs other than this one, if you don't mind. So there's an option here under these tabs, these 3 vertical dots. I can say close all the other tabs and leave this tab open just to make it easy. Okay. So here I can see where your users are logging in from. Now, does that make sense? You know, if you're a worldwide organization, it makes perfectly good sense. But maybe I want to look and see, you know, gee, I've got folks logging in from places they shouldn't log in from. Maybe that's an interest of various interesting activity where somebody may be trying to gain access into my system. So if I look at the IP addresses they're logging in from, and they're, maybe from North Korea or something, that might make things a little suspicious. Additionally, we have a partnership with CrowdStrike. So we can take and look an IP address up or a domain name or whatever through CrowdStrike, and we can see if it's been recognized as having some sort of malicious confidence, some sort of malicious activity. And we can obviously write a query to display that information. Now, I don't want you to panic, but here I'm looking at the last 60 minutes and I've got 104 of these IP address malicious confidence. This is because in our training system, in our demo system, we create this fictitious data to tell the story, right? Hopefully you don't have 104 hits in 60 minutes from malicious activity. I can also look to see where a user logs in from, what IP address, and in a relatively short period of time, did they log in from multiple IP addresses, which geographically is improbable. So for example, this user logged in the last 3 hours from 2 different IP addresses, the United States and one that's in Egypt. Now, since transporter technology does not occur, at least not that I'm aware of, it's kind of hard for this to happen. I can't go from the US to Egypt in 3 hours. Now, is it possible that I logged in through a VPN and it tunneled me some? Yeah, it's possible. But as a security person, I need to be aware of what's happening in these sort of things. We call these a land speed violation. And you'll actually see that query in this class. So we'll actually build that. Here, I can see my data coming in through my S3 buckets. And if I want to, of course, I can turn on or turn off. I can select certain things that I may want to look at here. Okay. So I can filter my data so I can see what kind of data and stuff I'm getting. Here I can see my logs of my AWS guard duty, see what's happening there. I can scroll down here and I can look at my flow data volume here. And basically what I'm looking at here is an outlier function. And this outlier function, again, my line here is my data. The brown cloud in the background is statistical standard deviations. So it gives me kind of a range of what I can be in. And if I have a data value that's outside of my cloud, that's what generates these red triangles. So those are outliers. So statistically here, I can see what's happening. And if I want to, of course, I can filter and select, as I said before. Here I can see my firewall traffic. As I can see here, I'm receiving a whole bunch of firewall traffic. My sense I'm not sending much, it's right down there. So if I turn this off, now I can see my sent. I'm sending at most about 2.5 megs at the peak there, but I'm receiving over, close to 75 megs of data. So looks pretty normal. Down here, I can see my malware, getting data from my malware logs if I want. So I can see how many files I've cleaned or deleted or quarantined. So get a sense for what's happening. And then of course I could take this information and investigate it further, right? Where am I having these issues? Whose computer, whose system, whatever. And then here in my integrity monitoring event history, I can see where I've got various issues of criticality or of high or of whatever I want. So I can turn again, select what I want to here to see the story that it's telling me. So these are just some examples of the type of things that you and I can do with regards to security and queries in Sumo Logic. And as you all may remember, I can click on these little icons right here, and they will take me to the underlying query. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do in this class, is build some of those types of queries. Are there any questions? All right. Let me close these tabs. And let's go ahead and get you guys a chance here to log in. So just like yesterday, right? Just like yesterday, we gave you a lot of slides, a lot of information, and then we finally had you log in. Well, in this class, we log in much earlier. We are going to start building. We are going to start doing various things. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to fire up Google Chrome or Firefox. And for the URL, I'd like you to go to service.sumologic.com. That's service.sumologic.com. The next thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick a 3-digit number, any 3-digit number you like, 001, 005, 921, I don't really care. I would ask that you put that 3-digit number in the chat box. We just want to make sure we're not picking a bunch of duplicates, right? Everybody's picking 123 or it's picking 007 or whatever. So if you put that in the chat box, then for the email address, when you go to this site and there's an email address, you're going to log in as Training Plus Analyst. You're going to drop these hashtags. You're going to replace them with your 3-digit number. So Training Plus Analyst 603@sumologic.com. And then the current password is learning 22 exclamation mark. Learning 22 exclamation mark. Now that password changes every month, but again, if you when we get around to the first Monday of April and the password changes, if you need to reach out to me and get that password information, we can certainly provide it to you. If you'll bear with me just a second, I'm going to guess. Okay, then let me bear with me a second. I'm going to take this information. I am going to copy it and put it in the chat box for you all. And I'm also going to put in my contact information in case you want to play in our training environment once our current password of Learning 22 expires. So if you want to know what the password is, you can send me an email. Okay. So there is that. So our environment here is wide open. And so what I want you to do is, as I said before, go to service.sumologic.com and you're going to type in, Training Plus Analyst with a 3-digit number, pick whatever 3-digit number you want. And then again, that password is learning 22 exclamation mark. Now I'm actually going to log in with my credentials because I have administrative rights. And in case somebody gets blocked out or there's a problem, I can resolve it during class. Now, what I'd like you to do is, if you're able to log in, I'd like you to go ahead and raise your hand. If you're having problems, please let us know. So if you're having problems, it says, please verify credentials, something, let us know. Otherwise, you should be able to log in, and we want to make sure that everybody's getting logged in. So right now I show 4 of you out of 9 who are logged in. Make that 5 now. So we want to give you a chance to log in. The reason we're logging in is everything we're going to do is hands-on in this activity. So we want to make sure that you all log in and get a chance. I realize some of you are probably distracted by the day job, and I feel for you. But I really would encourage you to log in so we can do some hands-on labs together. So I want to make sure everybody has a chance to log in. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Again, when you log in, if you'd raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. That way I know everybody's logged in. Again, if you're having problems logging in, please let us know. Odell and Ulf can help you out. Okay, I'm going to assume that everybody who wants to be logged in is logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the hands. Let's see what we got in the chat box. Yeah, thank you, Odell. All right. So just like yesterday, there's a couple things I want to point out to you. So hopefully you're all logged in. Maybe you got a bunch of tabs across here. We'll talk about that in a minute. Maybe this navigation pane is open like it is for me, or maybe it's closed. The navigation panel is closed. You'll see this Sumo logic and this hamburger menu, or stack of pancakes or slices of cheese, or whatever you want to call it. But if you click anywhere up here, that will open up your navigation panel. Again, here's your shared library where your administrator typically puts things so that you and I can access things. Here's your personal library where when you save things, you can put it in your personal library. Here is your favorites, and here is your recently opened by or recently shared by information here. Then down below here is our main menu. Now, in our main menu, if I click on help, and I can click on documentation. So here we're going to click on documentation, and I'm going to sit there and talk a little bit about our overall documentation. So bear with me. Is there a question, Olet? Okay, you raise your hand. Got it. No problem. Got it. Okay. So any questions? Any questions, folks? Don't want to leave anybody behind. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So, by the way, you can also get to our documentation by simply opening up a new browser tab and typing in help.simologic.com. That's help.simologic.com. Now, in here, for those of you who are, I mentioned we had a bunch of APIs. There's a chapter here on our APIs, right? Those of you who want to learn more about our Cloud SIM product, there's a chapter here on our Cloud SIM product. But there's two things I want to point out to you with regards to this help. One of the things is in our search chapter. So here in all of our chapters, we have these three dots, horizontal dots. And if I click on them, it expands my list. And in here, you'll see something called search cheat sheets and search. And if I click on search cheat sheets, it takes me to my documentation. Here I am in my search chapter. By the way, your table of contents moves over here to the left. And under my search cheat sheets, if you click on the log operators cheat sheet, here you can see some of the operatives that we're going to be using in our class. So here's just a taste of some of the log operators that we use. And just for fun, to make life a little easier for you, I'm going to copy this, and I am going to paste this in the chat box. So there's that reference for you in case you want. Now, for those of you who are looking for a great gift for your fellow coworkers, there's a PDF version of this. You can click on that PDF version. You can print this out. You can even laminate it if you want to and give it to your friends as that all special gift, right? Those of you looking for a Valentine's Day present or a present for your loved ones, there you go, right? Sure, that'll put you in the doghouse. Anyway, so we got the log operators cheat sheet. Just wanted you to see that. Another thing I wanted to mention to you is, and this one's probably even more important. In the first chapter, the Start Here chapter, if I click on that, you'll see that we have our Quick Start Labs and Tutorials. And here on our Quick Start Labs and Tutorials, here's where we have our labs that you and I can reference. And so the cloud security monitoring and analytics, these are the labs that we are going to do. So I am going to copy this link and I am going to paste it in the chat box as well, so that you have this ready reference. In fact, I recommend, if you're on Google Chrome, that you take this tab and you pin it. You right click on it, you pin it down so that you can easily switch back and forth between our Sumo Logic environment and your labs environment, because we'll be reading from here and working in there. So there's our labs, and we're going to be playing with that. So I want to make sure we keep that one open. Okay. So what we're going to do here, folks, is we're going to create a big old dashboard. And we're going to create a dashboard talking about where people are logging in from, do we have any land speed violations, all kinds of different queries that make this up. And so this first section here is kind of an overview of what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, and what you can do with the tool. Then, if you want to, you can click on the introduction. And all the introduction has to do is it says, we want you to log in, right? We want you to log in. Here's what we're going to build, and here's how you log in. Okay. Well, we talked about that. You're all logged in. You're good to go. So we're going to start here with lab number 1. And in lab number 1, we are going to create a query that monitors our user activity. Now, again, if you remember our labs from yesterday, you can go into these labs and you can take this code and you can copy it. And then you go into Sumo Logic. You can create a new log search and you can paste this code and it should run right out of the box. Now, the problem is this is all fine, well, and good, but I need to explain to you what this code is doing and why we're doing this code, okay? So I'm going to break this code down. I'm going to break all the code down that we see. But that's basically what we're going to do. All right. So as I said, you can take the code and you can copy the code. And by the way, at the end of each lab, it's going to show you, this is what your code should look like. Right here is, this is the entire query we're going to create. Okay, we're going to build. Now, rather than jumping to the end of the book and the end of the story to see who done it, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through building this ourselves. Okay. So we always start with metadata source, right? We're going to use good old source category we talked about yesterday, which is one of our favorite metadata tags. And we are going to grab labs/AWS/CloudTrail. And as I start typing things in, I see there are my options. I can select the option and then I can run this. So now I am looking at my CloudTrail data here for the last 15 minutes. And I see I've got about 2,229 records. You may get a little bit different number here because when you clicked, it was a different time than when I clicked. Now, if I click right now, it's this point in time. Maybe we've ingested a few more log messages. You'll notice that these log messages are in JSON. They have key value pairs. Now, one of the cool things with our tool that our tool does automatically is we automatically parse, when we encounter JSON logs, we automatically parse all the fields and we put them in this field browser. So all of these fields are in my field browser. And if I want to, I can simply check mark the fields that I want and I can add them to my list here. Okay. However, and that works fine for JSON. The reason it works that way, the reason those fields are there is because on this gear icon up here, there's a setting that says auto parse mode. And then when this is enabled and your logs are in JSON, we automatically parse out the fields there. Only works in JSON. Now, before we had this auto parse mode, what we used to do was we used to go in here and find the field that we wanted. So just bear with me a second, like event type. And I would right click on event type. And I would say, I want to parse this selected key. And it would add that line of code there. This is how or why we're seeing, let me go back up here to the top here. This is why we're seeing this JSON field equals raw type stuff. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to rename these fields. Right now, as I right clicked on event type and said parse selected key and it added it up there, if I run this, I'm going to see that event type was pulled out. And event type looks like this event type. Now, what I want to do is I want to add an as clause because I want to give it a different name. So let's try that as clause again, this time typing in as correctly. And I want to call this event underscore type. Now, when I run this, now I'm seeing the word event underscore type here. So that's my field name. So if you want to rename a field in your results, you can simply add an as clause. Now, they want us to find here our event type, our user identity. I'm going to come back to that one in just a second. They also want me to grab the source IP address. So let's go find the source IP address. So as I scroll through here, anywhere I can grab a source IP address, right click, parse selected field. Again, it adds that line, and I simply want to rename it. SRC underscore IP. So now I've got event type and source IP address. And I'm pulling those fields out because I need them. I need to do something with them. Any questions so far? Good. User identity here is a little tricky because when I open up user identity, sometimes I don't see the user ID. So user identity is kind of tricky. There's my username. So the first one didn't have it. In my case, the second one did. So I want to make sure I've got a field here called username under user identity. And then I can parse selected key. And again, I'm going to rename this and call this actor. That's what we're going to call this. And so now when I run this, I am seeing my actor, my event type, and my source IP. Now, they're not listed here by the order that they're listed here. They're listed here alphabetically. And I can use the fields command to change the order. You'll see that later in the class. But I'm basically pulling out the IP address, the event type, and the actor. And that's basically what I'm doing. And that's why I'm doing it. Any questions? Okay. They also want me to grab event name. So again, I can go out here and find my event name, right click, parse selected key, put my as clause in here and event underscore name. Now, again, you can call it anything you want to, but we have a naming convention that says, you know, event underscore whatever. So that's what we're using. We're using some sort of a common naming convention. So that's grabbing our fields. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we want to create a parameter. We want to be able to ultimately select an event type or an actor name, and then be able to filter our data based on that. And so we're going to do event type. Now, there's two ways to create a parameter. One is kind of manually, where you're creating the line of code, and then you're going to manually create that parameter. The other is, as you type, you can actually create the parameter dynamically. So let's do this. I'm going to add a new line. To add a new line, again, it's either a shift enter or an alt enter. I'm going to go to the end of my query, add a new line, and I'm going to start my command with a pipe, right? All our commands are joined together with a pipe. And so I'm going to start with a where clause, and I'm going to say where event underscore type matches. Matches is an operator, it's going to compare. And I'm going to, again, call this event underscore type. Now, it may not make sense. Where event type matches event type, just bear with us. It will become obvious here why we did that. What I want to do is I want to name my parameter the same as my field name, okay? Now, the problem is this isn't a parameter yet. Notice if I don't highlight anything in here, there's nothing over here in the corner, lower left corner, lower right corner, excuse me. But if I highlight something here, I now have the option to create a parameter. This is how you and I can create a parameter manually. We can click on this create a parameter. Now it's decided to call this parameter name parameter1. I wish it would have called it event underscore type, and I'm going to change it so it says event underscore type. The default value that I want to use here is going to be a star. Star means give me everything. Again, it knows the data that's in here is a string, and I can put in here a description if I want. So this is going to create a parameter for us. So let me show you what's going to happen. I'll get into this information in just a little bit. So I'm going to add this parameter. I'm going to click save. Now you'll notice I've got this funny box in it with a star. And if I run this box, lo and behold, I see all my different event types. AWS API call. Also, I have a console login here if I look far enough. Got a few of them in there somewhere. Anyway, okay, just take my word for it. So what I can do is I can actually remove this star, and I can say something like AWS, excuse me, AWS API call. And now I'm only going to see the AWS API call event types. So this allows a user, when they're running your query, they can see specifically what we want them to see. They can filter for what they want to filter. Okay. And again, a star is a global wildcard that says, give me everything. Okay. So that's one way to create the parameter. Any questions so far? The other way to create the parameter is, again, I'm going to do a shift enter. Again, I'm going to do a pipe. I'm going to type in the where. This time I'm going to say where actor matches. And now I want to create my parameter automatically. And the way that you do that with code is I simply type into braces the name of my parameter field, 2 end braces, and it automatically creates this parameter for me. Now, I've got to go in and modify some properties of this parameter. So I'm going to click on the ellipsis here, and I'm going to manage my parameter settings. That's what brings up this box. So here's my parameter name. I'm going to specify a default value of a star, and I'm going to go from there. Now, again, right now, if I'm running this with my star in place, I get to see all of my actors. You see, I've got good old Kevin here. I have Kevin. I have Ankit. I have Gosha. I have Joe Schmo. I want to filter for a specific actor. I can just go in here and type in Kevin. And now it reduces the amount of records. And all I see here is Kevin. So that's what parameters do for me. Now, what I'd like ultimately is if I get rid of that star, if I backspace over that star, I'd like to see a pick list of all my actors, or I'd like to see a pick list of all my event types. We're going to get to that. That's coming. That's coming pretty soon. But I want to take a moment here and see if there's any issues with creating parameters. Any concerns? Are we good shape? All right, let me get back to my lab here. So we created our event type. We made our parameter here. Then we also did it by code where we say where actor matches actor. The next thing I want to do is I want to count by my actor, my event type, and my event name. So again, new line, pipe, count by actor, event underscore type, comma, event underscore name. So I'm basically saying I want to count by these three things. And when I run this, because I'm doing a count or a sum or a min or a max, I get this aggregates tab. And here it's displaying, here's my actor, here's my event type, here's my event name, and here's my count of how many of these I had. Because again, what I'm looking to see here is who's logging in over the last 15 minutes. By the way, I can change this if I want to maybe the last 24 hours and rerun it. And now I'm looking at more data. So here is my more data, what folks are logging in. And again, I don't know about you, but Gosha here is logging in 1,200, almost 1,300 times in 24 hours. Now, Gosha is logging in through an API call. So, maybe whatever, but I can see what they're doing here. They're attaching group policies and stuff. So you're getting some information here that you can now look at and say, oh, wow, is this right? Somebody's disabling a key, somebody's deleting replication groups. So I can get a sense for what's happening here. Sorry about that. So the other thing I want to do is I want to filter, and I only want to see the top 10 actors by event type and count. By the way, just for fun here, just to save myself a little typing, I am going to, hoping to, there we go, copy that one line, and I can paste this line. Now, we have in Sumo Logic a top function or a bottom function, and I can say I want to see the top 10 actors by event type and count. So now when I run this, I am seeing my top 10 actors. It's limited to 10 by event type and my count. Then I'm going to use the transpose command, because what I want to do here is, here's my actors. I want to see my event types across my columns, and then I want to see my counts in the middle. So I want to create kind of like a pivot table. So I'm going to add a new line, add a pipe, type in transpose, make sure I spelled it right. Again, if I spelled it right and it's a reserved word, it should come up in that lovely pink fuchsia color, whatever. And what do I want in my row? In my row, I want event underscore type, excuse me. I want actor, excuse me. And in my column, I want event underscore type. So now when I run this transpose command, now I see my actors across my rows. Across my columns, I see my different types. And again, here's where people are logging in through the AWS console. Here's where people are logging in through an API call. Now, one thing about the messages and aggregates tab, I see there's something in the chat box. Let's see what's going on. Okay, thanks, Odell. From the aggregates tab, and only from the aggregates tab, can I create charts and visualizations and things like that. In the messages tab, I do not have that capability. This is a test question that you'll see later today. So only from the aggregates tab can you create the various visualizations that you might be interested in creating. Okay. In fact, in the directions, what it wants us to do is it wants us to create a chart. It wants us to create a bar graph icon. And then they want to go into the settings and change the color to red. So bar type chart. And here I can see my AWS API calls and my console sign-ins. And to change this, I'm going to click on this gear icon. And I'm going to go to change properties. And I'm going to change this from blues to red. And so now I've got reds. Personally, I'm not a big fan of using red unless there's a problem. I want it to stand out. By the way, you can also change and color your values by value range and stuff like that if you want to. So that takes us here to that part of the lab. Now, I mentioned that we want to have a pick list. Now, we've already created one of the pick lists for you. We created the pick list for event type. So what I want to do here in step 11 is I want to go back here to my event type. I want to go back here to my ellipses. I want to manage my parameter setting. And down here is where I can set the values for this parameter. For setting the values, I can choose that I'm going to type in text entries. So I can type in all the text entries that I want. Or I can choose to use label value pairs. And I can say, this is the field, this is the value, this is the field, this is the value. Or I can use a lookup. Now, we're going to use a lookup because we created a query that automatically runs every hour, and it provides us a pick list. And we're going to reference that pick list. So we're going to show you later how to create this lookup. But for right now, we're going to choose lookup. And then here, we've got to find the lookup file. So when I click in here, this lookup file has been saved to our shared directory. So we're going to type in shared / I'm going to start typing in event. And as I start typing in event, I see there's something here called event_types. And if I click on event_types, I have now selected that as my lookup file. That query runs in the background, like I said, every hour. And so we're going to reference that or the results of that lookup file. As I said, we'll show you how to create this later in the class. And then here, when I look at this file only has one field. That field is called event type. So I want to select event type and I want to populate it with event type. Now, the rest of the stuff is fine. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to click save. And so now what I'm doing is I am turning my parameter here into a pick list. Now, if I backspace over my star, I see a pick list of my different event types. And I can, if I want to, select a specific event type, rerun my query, and have it filter my data. And we're going to do actor a little later on, and we're going to show you how to create that lookup with actor. So that's basically what we're doing with the parameters. Any questions so far? There's just one more thing. We're going to take this information, this dashboard, we're going to add it to a dashboard. So you and I are going to create a dashboard, add this to panel to dashboard. And as far as the panel title, we're going to call this top 10 user activity. So if you don't mind, I'm going to swipe over this top 10 user activity. I'm going to copy it. Go back over here. I'm going to click add to dashboard. And my panel title, as I said, is my top 10 user activities. So let me paste that in. And then as far as my dashboard name, they want me to start with the word SOC, Security Operations Center is what SOC stands for. And I'm going to put in an underscore, and I want you to put in your initials. Now, because I teach this class fairly regularly, and you can see how regularly I teach it, there's a few of these in here. I'm also going to add today's date to this. So I'm going to add my date to this just to make it a unique value, because I want it to be unique. And again, if yours is not unique, where it gives you the option to create a new dashboard, type in some numbers, whatever numbers you want. It could be today's date. And this is going to give me the option to create a new dashboard. And I'm going to click that. Now, this is very, 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 very important. Okay. When I get here, this switch, by default, we're going to create this in the new dashboard UI. And we don't want to do that, because if we're going to use the new dashboard UI, we would actually go out to the dashboard. We would create our parameters first, create our lookups first, and then we would create a dashboard. We're going to use the legacy dashboard. So we want to throw this switch in this position. We do not want this switch to be blue. We want this switch, we click on it, we want it to the left. Very, very important. I suspect one of you, at least one of you, will probably miss this step. Okay. Make sure you throw that switch back. Now, by default, it's going to put in our personal folder. That's perfectly fine. That's exactly where we want it. And now I can click the button Add. And so now what this is going to do is this is going to add our panel to our brand new dashboard. And there's our panel title. And here's our panel. And I can make this bigger or smaller if I want to, right? All that good stuff. Now, what's cool is not only did it bring this in, up here where my filter funnel is, if I click on that filter funnel, it also brought in my parameters. And if I go to my event type and I backspace over, I have my pick list. Okay. I haven't created a pick list yet for actor. We're going to do that later. But I could, if I want to, type in here, Kevin. And I can run this and I can see if there's any data here for Kevin. Why didn't it pick up Kevin? Let's try Gosha.
Event type wildcard is wrong.
Oh, you're right. That's why. Yeah, this isn't a wild card. There we go. Thank you. I'm here in a football scholarship. Good eyes, by the way. So that is basically what we're doing. And when we add more queries and more panels to this, we can use these to filter the data in those panels. Okay. By the way, if you want to close this filter thing up, you can hit the X button and closes it right up. Again, to open it up, it's this filter funnel right there, and you're good to go. So folks, congratulations. We have finished up lab number 1. And that's almost it's the second hardest lab here. By the way, these little quiz questions are great for preparing you for the exam. So let's talk about these, right? This statement right here, JSON field equals raw source IP as source IP, is going to extract the source IPs and its subsequent values from our logs. Is that statement true or false? What do you think? Put it in the chat, unmute your mic, say the answer. What do you think? This will grab our extracts the source IP addresses out. This statement is true. Thank you, Jonathan. Double curly brackets enclosing a variable label are used to create parameters. True or false? True, right? Excellent. And then finally, I use the settings icon on the message tab to change the color of the bar graph. What do you guys think? Is that true or false? Jonathan says false. Daniel says false. You are correct. It's not the messages tab. It's the aggregate tab. So here in messages, there is no setting. I'm sorry, there's a setting here where you can export these out if you want to, but you can't change the color. You can only do that in the settings tab in your aggregates tab, not your messages tab. So good catch, folks. Excellent. All right. So we got lab 1 done. This is probably an excellent time to take a break. We've been at it now for about an hour. So I'm going to switch over here to lab 2, and I'm going to bring up my famous 5-minute timer. And so if you guys don't mind, let's take a 5-minute break. This timer gets down to 0. I'd like you all back. Have a good break. Yep. Hey, folks. Hopefully everybody's back. Ready to go. Just taking a hit off the coffee mug there. All right. So in lab 2, we're going to sit there and create another query where we are going to look up where folks are logging in from. So that's basically what we're going to do. Hopefully you're all back from a break. When I look here at lab 2 and I start looking at step 2 here, this code we've all used before. The only exception is there's a field in there called responseelements.console login, the result. And we're going to capture that field. But this is code that we've basically used before. So I'm going to copy this code if you don't mind. And I'm going to go out here to my Sumo logic environment, grab a new log search. I'm going to paste this information in. By the way, all of our queries we want to set to run for 24 hours. So I'm going to go in here and change this. By default, it's 15 minutes, but I'm going to change it to 24 hours. And whenever you copy code and paste it, always a good idea to test to make sure it works. So it's running, life's good. We've got our results. And then they want us to do some filtering and some parameters. So this is something we haven't seen before. I can type in a where, and this exclamation mark reads not, is empty actor. I want to make sure that when I'm looking at my parameters and stuff like that, I filter out any place where I don't have actor or event type. So that's what this code is doing. And I'm going to take that code simply, and I'm going to paste it in here to my query. So I'm going to simply filter out where I don't have, or the field of actor or event type is blank, is empty, right? So, and quite frankly, it won't make any difference in this query because all my fields are not empty. There's no fields that are empty, but it's a good housekeeping item to make sure you don't have any null results, you know, that sort of thing. And then here on step 5, we're going to add our parameters. So I'm going to go out here and take this code. And I'm going to go ahead and add this new line again, Shift Enter, Alt Enter, and I'm going to add that new code. Now, when I do this to create my parameters here, I've got to go in here and put in my little stars here as default. So, oops, sorry. There's a star. There's a star. And I can run this and life is good. Okay. So all we're really doing so far in lab 2 is just copying and pasting code. Nothing new here really is coming to play. Now what we want to do is we want to do a geographic lookup. And you'll find that we can use the lookup command, and you'll see there's links in here. So I can click on this and it will take me into my lookup command and how to use my lookup command. But let me actually go back. I can also, if I want to, let me grab a new tab here. And I can do a simple Google search, right? Sumo logic geo lookup. And if I do a Sumo logic geo lookup, here is the information about using this lookup command to display things on a map. So I can use, we have a partner called NewStar. And basically, we're going to send a command to NewStar, and it's going to give us back results. So this new line of code here, what I'm going to do is type in a pipe, type in lookup, and I'm actually going to take this code here. I want to look up my latitude, my longitude, all of that fun stuff. So what happens when you read this lookup command, you actually start at the end. So we're going to take the source IP that we got up here, right? The source IP, and we're going to pass that back as the IP. We're going to send this to our partner at Newstar, and Newstar is going to send us back a latitude, longitude, country name, city, and region. So when I run this, I now have in my result set, here's my actor, here's a city, country name, event type, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now, some of these don't have a country name. Most will. So again, I could add a where clause to filter those out if I want to. Okay. But this will tell us where people are logging in from. Now, again, in order to be able to turn this into a map, I need to have some sort of aggregation. I need to do a count of this. So the next thing I'm going to add in here is I want to say, I want to count it by my, and in order to make a map out of it, I need at least latitude and longitude. But I'm also going to do a count by actor, source IP, latitude, longitude, country name, and event type. So let me add that line in. And because I'm doing a count, now I have an aggregates tab. And because I have here latitude, longitude, and my count, I can click on this icon and turn this into a map. So I can see where folks are logging in from. So we're going to take this map and we are going to add it to our other dashboard. And we're going to call this Cloud Trail Geo sign-in activity here. So I'm going to copy this as my panel title. As I said, we're going to add this to our dashboard. And I'm going to put this as my panel title, right? Geo. And then as far as my dashboard, I'm going to type in the name of the dashboard that I just created earlier. So SOC underscore my initials underscore, and then today's date, 3/16. And when I click add, now you will see, well, actually you'll see this message. And what this message is, it says, look, that dashboard already has some parameters, one called event type, one called active. I showed that to you earlier. Now you're adding another query that has event type and active. Are they the same and do they mean the same thing? And the answer is yes. And if that answer is yes, you click add panel. If the answer is no, they mean different things, then you can go back in here and rename your search parameters, modify them. But we want to add panel. And so now it's going to go back to this dashboard. It's going to add this panel. And again, now I can go into my filters and I can change maybe my actor to, let's grab Kevin again. That didn't, had a problem with that before. Now I can see, here's Kevin's activity. And I can also see where Kevin maybe is logging in from. Or maybe I want to see where Gosha is logging in from. So this will actually affect both panels. And if I want to, I can go up here to the gear and I can see which panels it's tied to. Okay. All right. So that's lab 2. Again, a couple of quiz questions here for you. Says here question number 1. Lookup uses the CrowdStrike data to provide latitude and longitude. Is that statement true or false? False, absolutely correct. Lookup uses Newstar data to provide latitude and longitude. You'll find later in the course, we will use CrowdStrike data for finding malicious activities and stuff like that. Number 2, I can display a map without aggregating data. What do you think? Is that statement true or false? That statement is also false. I need to have latitude, longitude, and count in order to create a map. And then 3, I can use add panel to add to an existing dashboard. This question I don't like because while this, if you go into your dashboard and if you click on here and add panel, the only panel that you can add is a text and title panel. You can't create a visualization panel here. Now, if I was in the new dashboard tool, instead of these legacy dashboards, if I was in our new dashboard tool, I could add additional panels if I want to. So I don't like that question anymore. Question's got to go away, be replaced. Okay. Fortunately, you won't see it on the test. By the way, the reason I'm seeing multiple hemispheres and copies of the Earth here, if you will, it's because of the X and Y axes here. Okay. If this was, I was able to drag it up and bring it up a little higher, I would be able to balance out the axes and it would render just one version of the Earth. Okay. Not multiple instances there. Any questions about lab 2? Hey, we're on a roll. Let's go grab lab 3 then. Here in lab 3, we can use the top, we want to see the top 10 number of failed login attempts. Okay. So again, we're going to use the same sort of code we used before. This is all going to be very same. And here what we're looking at here is the console login as the result. Were they successful? Were they failed? That sort of thing. So again, I'm going to grab this code. I'm going to go back out here. I'm going to grab a new log search. Paste this code in. That changes to 24 hours. And I'm going to run this. Make sure I get results. Okay. Then I'm going to add my parameters. Again, add a new line here by doing a shift enter, an alt enter, or whatever. And I'm going to go into my parameters here, and I'm going to add my stars. And I'll run this again. Now, again, I'm going to check and make sure things aren't empty. So I'm going to grab those. Actually, I'm going to grab all 4 of these lines of code. And there's a reason why I'm going to grab all 4 lines of code. So let me select all this, copy it. All right. Let me add a new line here. Let me paste in those 4 lines. The reason I wanted to add all 4 lines is I can comment out lines if I want to. To comment out a single line is 2 forward slashes. So I can comment out that line. I can comment out that line. And as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm making sure my values here aren't empty, right? Where not is empty actor. Where not is empty event type. So that's going to make sure things are not empty. Is there a question, Daniel?
Yeah, I see you're using word per line. What is best recommended, using that or the Boolean operator and?
I'm sorry?
What is the difference between using where this, where that, where this other thing, and just putting in one line where event matches this and actor matches that and is not empty?
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. I understand. Okay, I understand your question. So what you're saying is combine these into an and statement. The problem you got to be careful of here is that your Boolean logic, you're looking for both conditions have to be true in order to get some results. And so it's possible, you know, not in this case where I'm looking for something that's empty, that's fine. You could do that. But if I'm looking for where name equals Meredith and occupation equals trainer, you know, both those conditions must be true in order for me to get a result back. Otherwise, it's going to filter everything else out. So you got to be careful with adding those and statements. When you put them on 2 separate lines like this, it basically acts as an or clause.
Also,
Okay.
this is an or clause. Okay,
Well, I mean, with
okay.
these 2 statements here, back to
Okay.
back.
Yep.
Okay, they're 2 separate statements, 2 separate commands. Okay, now remember our goal here was to find out when people failed to log in. So I'm going to take the 2 backslashes here. I'm going to remove them out. And now I want to filter and only see where my results have failed. By the way, right now I've got about 5,812 messages. That's where my results are. if I run this without my where clause, where result is equal to failure, you'll see I'm down to only 78. So now, or 79, I'm seeing only the results where things have failed. And then the other thing is I don't care about the API logins. I care about the console sign-ins. So again, I'm going to add a where clause here where my event type is my AWS console sign-in. Now, one thing we did not put into the lab and we should have, because we're looking for the event type here specifically for AWS console sign-in, I don't need that line. I don't need that parameter, right? Because I'm not selecting either this or that. I'm filtering here for a specific type. So I wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of that. That's not in the lab, but again, you know, what are you trying to accomplish here? Do you need those parameters now? Now what I want to do is I want to aggregate over time. So I've got a time slice operator. And my time slice operator, again, I'm going to copy these 3 lines of code. I'm going to paste them in here at the end. And again, I can comment things out. So I'm going to comment out the last 2 lines. I'll show you a way to comment out a whole bunch of lines here consecutively in just a minute. But what my time slice operator does is it's going to create 1-hour buckets. So I'm covering the range of 24 hours, which means I'm going to have 24 buckets, 1 hour each. And now I want to count by my time slice, my actor and my event type and that sort of thing. Oops, excuse me. Try this again. Thank you. So now what it's doing is when it did the count, I've got my aggregates tab. Here are my time slices. Here is my actor, my event type, my event name, and the fact that they've failed 3 times. Okay. Now I want to look at my top 10 because right now I'm looking at everybody here in the last 24 hours. I only want to see my top 10 actors based on my event type, my time slice, my results, and my count. So now I've got some results of who failed to log in. One little thing, because we know that this query was built to test for result of failure. I'm not sure I need to display failure here, but we are. And so now we can take this information and we can actually add it to our dashboard, which is what we're going to do next. We're going to call this the top 10 failed login attempts. So again, add to dashboard. Top 10 failed login attempts. And again, I am going to select, excuse me, I'm going to select my dashboard here. So it adds to my dashboard that I want to add to. And so again, it found this one parameter. I commented out the other parameter. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Doesn't make any difference. Okay. And now I have got this panel in there as well. And again, by the way, I can resize these in such a way, excuse me, I can resize these in such a way that, I start building out my dashboard the way I want to. Went a little too far there. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, I can play around here a little bit and get things the way I want it and all that good stuff. We'll do that at the end. And that, folks, is lab number 3. And again, some quiz questions here at the bottom. Adding a wildcard in the parameter window means it will filter out everything. Is that statement true or false? Mathis and Jonathan say false. They're correct. Good. Time slice groups my incoming logs into chunks of time. That's true, right? True. And then the following code, pipe where not is empty actor filters out logs that do not have an actor. Do you think? True. Very good. True. Good job. Let's move into lab number 4. In lab number 4, we're looking for brute force attacks. Now, what's a brute force attack? For us, a brute force attack is when somebody logs in unsuccessfully, and then they log in successfully. Okay. So that's us as a definition of a brute force attack. And so what we want to do is we want to write a query that's going to show us this information. And as you can see, we start out once again with the same lovely fields that we've had before. So here in step 3 of this lab, I'm going to grab the code that's there. I am going to paste this here, change this to 24 hours, run this, make sure everything works. And as I scroll down here, I see I'm going to add my parameters. By the way, one little pro tip that you could do if you want is you could take one of these existing queries and up here off the 3 vertical dots, you could duplicate that query and then modify the lines of code, right? Just so you know, you could duplicate a query and then modify the lines of code. Just let you know there's a pro tip there. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. All right, so again, we're going to grab the lines of code there, copy, paste. Okay. And we're going to go back out here. Again, we're going to create our time slice. Our time slice. So let me copy all this lovely code. If you don't mind, I will paste it in and we will talk about commenting things out. Now, these 3 lines here that I want to comment out after the time slice for right now, I could manually type in those if I want. But if you want to comment out a bunch of lines, what you can do is you can put your cursor up here where your search query is. And if you're on a Windows keyboard, if you hold the Alt key down, if you're on a Mac keyboard, you hold the Option key down, your cursor will change to a plus sign. With that plus sign, if you take your mouse and you drag down, it will then draw a line wherever you are there. I want to actually go a little farther with my line, so bear with me. There we go. Draws a line down, and whatever you type is going to go across all of those lines. So in my case, I want to do forward slashes. Okay. By the way, down here, I've got to put my stars in here. And so here we are looking at some code that we've seen before. Now, let's see if there's a question. Okay. Jonathan also points out also highlight, and you can use a control plus a slash. Very good. Okay. Now, what I want to do is this first if statement is going to say, look, if the result is equal to success, I'm going to create a field called successes count. I'm going to put a 1 there. So here in my if statement, this is my Boolean condition. If the result's true, I'm going to do this. If the result is false, I'm going to do this. So it's going to create a new field called successes count. And if the result is success, it's going to put a 1 in there. So it's going to create a new field here for me, success. And if I don't have success, it won't put a 1 in there. Okay. All right. Then I'm going to do the same thing with failure. And so now I'm going to have success count and failure count. And again, these things are over here. There's success count. Here's failure count. And then I'm going to sum those up together. I'm going to aggregate. So again, when I do the sum, I sum my successes count as successes. I'm going to sum my failure count as failure. And I want to do this by time slice, actor, and event type. So I'm going to see in my list down here at the bottom, here's my time slice, my actor, my event type, and here's my count of successes and failures. Now, back to my lab. If nobody failed, I don't care, right? If nobody failed logging in, it's definitely not a brute force attack. So I'm going to filter and say where failure is greater and 0 and take out all my zeros. And then I'm going to do some math here. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like this calculation. I think this calculation's off. I believe it should be, failure minus successes divided by failure, whatever. That should be the right percentage. So I think this calculation's a little off, but functionally it will work. So here, what we're doing is we're going to add those 2 lines and we're going to calculate a failure percentage. And again, the higher the percentage, the more likely this was a brute force attack. Okay. Now, what I really want to do here, though, is I want to, my failures are the key component here. I should see a high number of failures. Everybody has a problem logging in once in a while. So if I see like a 1 here, I'm not terribly worried about it. What I'm looking for here is when I've got a high number of failures and then probably a low number of successes, that might be indicated of a brute force attack. So because I would probably modify this, make it a little more accurate. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add this to our dashboard. I'm going to call it possible brute force attempts. Add the dashboard. Possible brute force attempts. And again, the same dashboard I had before. Add, and there we go. Again, it found those parameters. We want to, those parameters are the same as the other parameters. And so now we've got possible brute force attempts. And here I can make this a little bigger. I can go over, oops. There we go. So obviously I can size it up the way I want to. And that takes care of that lab. Again, a couple of review questions here for you. The field _raw refers to the raw data that's in the incoming logs. And that statement is true. I didn't mention it to you, but that statement is true. Question number 2 is kind of weird. If the result matches failure count, then returns a 1 to failure in this example. Basically, what is this code doing? This code says if I have a failure, I am going to put 1 in my failure count. So that statement is also true, but again, it's just something you have to think about. And then when you use a time slice 1H, you are grouping incoming logs into 1-hour groups for the purpose of analyzing data over time. That statement is also true. So there you go. All right. This takes us to lab 5. And in lab 5, we're going to detect that land speed violation. This is when somebody logs in from a specific IP address, and then they log in a relatively short time from a different IP address, which are geographically spaced too far apart. Okay, that's what this is. And I'm going to tell you the code here is there's a lot of code. Okay, it's a lot of code. Jonathan, I'm not sure what you're trying to communicate here in the chat box.
Sorry, I just took a note.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So this code is very, very verbose. This query is very, very verbose. I'll walk you through it, but one thing I want you to be aware of: when you get to the exam, we're going to have a question here, and I don't like the question, but it's there anyway. That says, put the following process, when you build the land speed violation, put the following process in order. And so basically, this is what the choices are. You're going to select a source category, you're going to parse, all that fun stuff. And so if you go in here and look at this exercise, this is the correct answer. You'll drag and drop these boxes and put them in the right order, and you'll get the question right. Or if you want, it's one question, and out of whatever, you can say, look, I'll take the hit and I'll not get that question right. It's entirely up to you, but this is the answer to the question. The question is, put the following steps in order to create a land speed violation. And here's the steps. Now, I'm going to scroll down here to the very end of this query. Your final query should look like this. I'm going to go down to step 11 here. And as you can see, This is quite the query. Okay. I'm going to copy this query and I'm going to paste it in. Again, grab myself a new log search, paste this little rascal in, and I'm going to change this to a period of 24 hours. Okay. And I'm going to put my little star there. Now, let me explain to you what's happening. First of all, this was a comment. Great. When you get involved in a large query, sometimes it makes sense to put pseudo tags in as far as what you're going to do. And you put comments in there, right? Those, I don't know about you, I'm a computer, you know, my undergrad was in computer science. And one of the things I learned in my younger days of programming was when you're trying to solve a large problem, obviously break it down into small chunks. And so I would start with some comments about what is it I'm trying to do? What is it I'm trying to accomplish? And then I would have my code in that section that does what I want it to do. So that's why you see a lot of comments in here from time to time. We're just trying to break this thing down. Now, in this case, we're going after our CloudTrail data. And again, we're grabbing the username and the source IP address as user and as IP. Okay, that's what we're going to call it. Not going to call it source IP, we're going to call it IP. We're also, excuse me, we're going to add our parameter where user matches our actor. We're going to look at the IP address. We have a function in Sumo logic called isPublicIP. And we're going to make sure that the IP addresses we're looking at are public IP addresses, right? Now, if those of you familiar with IP addresses know that you also have private IP addresses, right? 192.168. Whatever, that's a private IP address. We don't care about those. We don't want to look those up. Those are private. They won't look up. They won't resolve anything. We only want public IP addresses. Then here where it says I'm going min message time as login time by user and IP. What this is doing, this is looking at the first message of a particular user. So we're looking at the first message and we're grabbing the login time, the user, and the IP. And then I'm going to sort this list by user and login time. Now the plus sign here means I want to sort login time, sort ascending. So what I'm doing is I'm going through my logs. I'm basically sitting there sorting this in ascending order because what I want to do is look at the first message. Then I want to see when that user logged in a second time, and the user logged in a third time, the user logged in a fourth time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the back shift operator to look for my next event of my user. So these first 4 lines, like I said, I'm just going to filter where my selected actor is based on make sure I got a public IP address. I'm going to start at the beginning of my logs. I'm going to sort these. Now I am going to use this function here called IP v4 to number, and it takes an IP address and it converts it to an IP decimal value for us. Just converts it to a decimal value. Okay. Later on, I'll use that decimal value for something else. I'm going to look at the previous IP decimal by user. I'm going to look at the previous login time by user. And when I eventually get there and there's no results, when I do a back shift and I don't get any results, I'm obviously at the end for that particular user. So that's basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, look, when I get to the end, I'm done. Now, this right here is going to convert my IP decimal number back to an IP address. That's what this does. This function right here is just a mathematical formula that's going to create my 4 octets, which are the 4 pieces that make up my IP address. And I'm going to string them together. So what I've done is I've looked at your IP address, your previous IP address, I've converted it to a decimal. I'm going to take that decimal, I'm going to convert it back to a field called previous IP. Then I am going to look up. Now remember, I've got 2 IP addresses here, right? Your IP address and your previous IP address. So I'm going to look up your IP address and I'm going to look up the latitude. I'm going to call it lat1. I'm going to look up your longitude and call it long1. Look up your country name, call it country name 1. Then I'm also going to look up your previous IP address. Again, I'm going to call that lat2, long2, country name 2. And I'm going to filter where I don't have either a lat 1, long 1, lat 2, long 2. Just make sure I'm not at the end of things. Then I get into this Haversine formula. Now, let me go back to the exercise here, back to the lab for a second. What the Haversine formula does is it takes a latitude, longitude, I'm sorry, it takes two different latitudes and longitudes, and it calculates the distance in kilometers per second. That's what the Haversine function does in our product. Test question, okay? So when I use the Haversine function, I provide it lat 1, long 1, lat 2, long 2, and it's going to calculate the distance in kilometers between those 2 points. That's what it does. All right. I also need to look at the time. So you've logged in and then there's a previous login. I'm going to subtract that difference. I'm going to divide it by basically a function. Instead of seconds, I want to divide it by a function and make it hours, right? That's what this 3.6 million is. Okay. So I basically, now I've got the difference of time. I've got the difference in kilometers. And so now what I want to do is take my distance in kilometers divided by distance in time, and that's going to give me an apparent velocity. How much changed? And again, where you logged in from one location and you logged in from that same location where the apparent velocity is 0, I want to remove that. I want to filter that out. I'm going to take these lines right here just for fun, and I'm going to comment them out. Okay, so again, I'm going to hold down my Option key or my Alt key on my keyboard, and I'm going to drag myself a line down here just to get rid of those lovely lines. So bear with me a second. To comment those things out. And I'm going to run this. But I figure we ought to see some data here. We ought to see what's going on just to kind of get ourselves kind of caught back up. And it's running this query, so bear with me. For some reason, my system's running a little slow right now. Let me get rid of that just for fun. So here I see my user, I see their IP address, I see their login time, I see their IP decimal. This is that IP decimal that we did. Going back to the previous IP address. Here's my previous login time. I'm going to convert this IP decimal back to an IP. So there's my previous IP. So here's my current IP. Here's my previous IP. Here's my current country. Here's my previous country. And again, here's the latitude and longitude of those IP addresses. And here's my kilometers in distance in kilometers, as well as my change of time and my apparent velocity. Okay. By the way, here I've got a situation where somebody logged in from the United States, somebody logged in from Mexico. The time difference is 0. Okay, that's obviously a little suspicious here. Now we'll fix this affinity thing in just a little bit. Okay. All right, so that hopefully gets us caught up. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set a value. We're going to set a value that says, look, if you've gone 500 kilometers, we're going to set that as the suspicious speed. And so now I'm going to modify this and I'm going to say, look, I want to see where my apparent velocity in kilometers is greater than that suspicious speed value. So this 500 is really a constant. And if I want to, then I can format this for presentation. This is actually a comment that format for presentation. But what I want to do here is I want to concatenate my IP address, put a comma in there and put my previous IP address and call that my IP addresses. So again, I'm going to put my two IP addresses together with separated by a comma. I'm also going to go in here and clean up my country name. And if my country name 1 and country name 2 are the same country name, I only want to display country once. Otherwise, if they're two separate countries, I want to display them both. That's what that statement's doing. And so now if I run this, what you'll see in my results when I go down to the results here after it gets done. Waiting for my results to show here. Still waiting. Patience is a virtue, not one that I possess, but it is a virtue. And again, I'm not quite sure why things are taking quite so long. I mean, I realize this is a complicated query, but still, it shouldn't be quite so harsh. Tell you what I could do. It changes, if you don't mind, from 24 hours down to about 3 hours. I'll tell you what, I got my results. What the heck, let's go. So down here over to the right, you'll now notice that I have my IP addresses and I have my countries. Where I only have one country, I will see only one country. For example, there in the United States, 2 different IP addresses for my IP address. Now, what this fields command is going to do is I'm going to get rid of a lot of this stuff. The only thing I really want to see is I really want to see my user, my IP addresses, my countries, my distance in kilometers, and all that stuff. So the fields command is used to remove a lot of this extraneous stuff. And then, of course, I'm also going to filter where my null, my user is not null, right? So I want to make sure I got a populated user. And then I also want to deal with this issue of where I've got a divide by 0 situation. Now, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And then I'm going to sort this just one more time here. Give me a second. There we go. And so now when I run this, I get the results that I'm basically looking for. I get a pretty clean query result set, not a bunch of stuff down here. And I can see where my users have been logging in from and all that good stuff. All right, let's see what we got here. Now it's just rendering my results. Just waiting for the results to render. Come on. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. I should have probably changed that to 3 hours instead of 24 hours, but. There we go. There's my results. So again, I see my users, my IP addresses, the countries, the kilometers, all that stuff. And now I can add this to my dashboard. And we're going to call this, I believe, land speed violations. And again, I'm going to add it to my lovely dashboard. And so again, we've got that. And life is wonderful. There's my land speed violations. It'll show some data here in a minute. All right. So that's that lab. Lots and lots of code, lots and lots of power and stuff that you can do with the tool. Okay. Quiz questions here. Geo lookup receives an IP address and returns location. that statement true or false? True, Mathis says, and he's absolutely correct. The Haversine formula is used to convert octets to decimals. Is that statement true or false? False, that's right. It's going to give us the distance in kilometers, what the Haversine formula does. And land speed violations allow you to detect suspicious user activity. I hope to show. Yes, good. Terrific, folks. Nice work. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about in lab 6, investing in search parameters. Remember, I told you that we are going to show you how to create a lookup table, right? And so here is where we're going to take the code that's going to do this. What this is going to do is it's going to go to my CloudTrail data. It's going to grab me a list of all my actors. It's going to count by my actors. Then it's going to remove the count field. And then finally, I am going to save this. So let me take this code, if you don't mind. And let me go ahead and go to my log search, paste this code up, change this to 24 hours. And before, let me comment out the save for a second. Actually, let me comment out the last 2 lines here for a second. I think you guys intuitively know what's going to happen here, right? I'm going to get a listing of all my actors and the counts. Now, when I do this fields minus count, I'm just removing the count name, the count field. So now I have my list of users. Now I want to create a lookup file that I want to save. And so you're going to use the save command. You want to put it in the shared directory. And here you want to modify this. You want to put a unique name here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the JWM. And again, I'm going to put in here today's date, 03/16. 16, John, 16. One more time, this time with feeling. Okay. So, and you can call this whatever the heck you want to, right? Now, when I run this, it's going to say, wait a second, you're not running a query to run a query. You're running a query to save a file. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. I want to do run. And so now it's going to run this query, but it's going to save it off as a file. Now, the question somebody asked earlier was, how can I schedule this, right? I can schedule this so it runs every hour or every, whatever, 24 hours or whatever. When I do a save as, hopefully you'll remember from yesterday, I can schedule this to run every day or whatever I want. If this query is good for 24 hours, I probably want to run once a day. And again, what I want to do here is I want to save as a lookup. Okay, and specify where do I want to put that lookup. So that's how you and I can schedule this. But now that I've got it scheduled and run and all that stuff, what I want to do is I want to go back to one of my queries where I have actor, and I want to go in here to my properties, manage my parameter settings. And I want to go in here and tell it to use, again, my lookup. And what lookup file, again, I'm going to type in /shared/ and I'm going to start with my initials. And as you can see, I've done this a time or two, okay? So here's the one I just created. And as far as the field that's in there, the field I want is actor. I can click save. And now, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is we have a pick list. I can pick whatever user I want to and filter and run this query. Now, one little thing. In order for this query to get into my dashboard, I have to republish this back to my dashboard. I have to republish this back to my dashboard. I have to add it to my dashboard. So it adds this parameter and the parameter settings in there. Okay. But that basically is what this lab is doing. And that's how you can create your lookups. Couple of quiz questions here. To display a lookup table, I use the command CP. Nope. Command CP is to copy. If you want to display your contents, it's the cat command. The cat command. So let me go back to this. Let me open up, actually, let me take this code right here. Copy it. Let me create a new log search. Let me paste and put in front of this CAT, the cat command, and that will display the results of my query. Okay. All right. Search parameters allow me to quickly pivot to any metadata values, right? It does. It allows your users to pivot to any metadata values. So if I'm a user and I'm looking at this dashboard, I could go in here and pick the values that I want and filter my data automatically across all these panels. Very powerful. And then I use the save operator to create my lookup table. What do you guys think? Is that statement true or false? True, it's true. All right, excellent. All right. Now, lab 7, I'm going to walk you through lab 7. If you guys want to do this, you certainly can, but I suggest you take your time with regards to doing this. So in lab 7, our goal here was to give you a product that you could take back. And if you're using CloudTrail, you can export it from our training environment and you can import it into your company's environment. Okay. So in lab 7, that's what we're going to try to do here. Now, what we're going to do and how we're going to do it is we're going to export it out first. So if I go into my Sumo Logic environment here, and if I go into my personal folder, and if I find this lovely thing here, I could type for it. But let me go here. You go. SOC JWM0306. There it is. You'll see I have an option that says I can export this. And I'm going to export it. There it is. That's the JSON that makes this dashboard work. So I can download this. Click on download. Then I can open this up in whatever editor I want. So I can open this up in whatever little text editor that I want. I'll use Visual Studio Code, but you know, any editor you want. Here's the reason you want to open it up, and here's the reason you may want to modify it. Remember, in our training environment, our CloudTrail data, the source category is called lab/AWS/CloudTrail. I doubt very much that you called yours the same thing as we called ours. You may have called it something different, prod/AWS/CloudTrail, or CloudTrail data or whatever. And so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go in here in the text editor and do a find and replace and change everywhere it says source category equals this. And by the way, it's in here several times. Okay. So you're going to do a search and replace and change it to whatever you call that field. Okay. And then once you do that, you can do a select all, right? The Command A or Control A to select all. Command C or Control C. And then here in Sumo Logic, in your personal folder up here, you can import this right in. Give it a name, paste in your JSON, and voila, you are good to go. Okay. And that will import it. Now, there is two things that you're missing though, and that's the two lookup commands to the pick lists. So here we've added the code for those pick lists. Okay. And so you can run those two queries and you can schedule those two queries to run every 25 minutes. And basically you've brought the dashboard in and you can have yourself a great old time. So that was the purpose behind Lab 7. We got one more little lab to talk about, and then I'll be done in about 5-7 minutes. Okay. Quick quiz question. Export outputs JSON format. True or false? True, right? It's all JSON. Before importing, I must change the pointers to my data using some sort of a visual text editor. Yes, that statement is true. And after importing, I cannot share my dashboard with others, right? Hopefully you all know, particularly from yesterday, that I can take anything in here that I save and I can share it with others, right? Through the share option. So you can certainly do that. There's just one more little exercise here and we're about done. So here in lab 8, we want to talk about CrowdStrike. And I want to talk about this from two perspectives, okay? Number one, we live in kind of a dangerous world, okay? And so any tool that you can get your hands on that's going to give you insight into if these are bad actors or problems is probably a very valuable thing. And the second thing I'm going to talk about is economics. With your ability, you guys have purchased Sumo. And because you've purchased Sumo, we have a relationship with CrowdStrike. So through our tool, you can use and do CrowdStrike lookups. And if you've ever priced CrowdStrike, it's not cheap. So you'll find that you can save yourself a lot of money by querying CrowdStrike through Sumo Logic. Okay. Now, in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about something here called a scheduled view. And there's a couple test questions on scheduled view. So let me talk about what a scheduled view is. A scheduled view automatically runs in the background on the system. So if you and I create a scheduled view, which is just a query, any query that you can, it automatically runs every minute or so in the background. So a scheduled view runs automatically every minute in the background, which means it's going to provide, when you actually try to use that scheduled view, the performance is going to be phenomenal. It works very well for reaggregating data. It works well for, it runs every minute. And then when new data comes in, it just kind of appends that data and reruns it, updates it. It's very fast. What it doesn't do, this is a test question, is it doesn't re-ingest all of the data, okay? So when you see that test question, you can see a series of true-false questions. Scheduled views have, do the following, and 3 of them are true, 1 of them is false. The one that's false is about re-ingesting all the data, okay? Now, again, scheduled views are nice because they can really help us out. So you can run things as a scheduled view. Again, you can go in here and here under manage data, here under logs, you can create a new scheduled view and put your query in there, and then it automatically runs. And the beautiful thing is when you use that view, instead of saying underscore source category equals, you say underscore view equals and the name of that view, and it just immediately pops. It's very fast, okay? Now, the point though is this, that's one point. So using scheduled views also don't count against your data ingest too, okay? So they work very, very well. The other thing I wanted to point out here is here in this code, this right here is where we look up things through CrowdStrike. So you and I can look up information through CrowdStrike. Again, we're going to pass in the IP address or the email or the domain. We're going to send it to Sumo Threat CS, which is CrowdStrike, and it's going to give us information about that. Now, if you want to understand what we can get back from this, again, let me do a Sumo Logic search here, Google search. Threat intelligence FAQ. Threat intelligence FAQ. Here is the information about CrowdStrike. What kind of stuff can I pass in? What kind of stuff can I get back out? Again, I can pass in an IP address, a domain, an email address, on and on and on it goes. And I will hear back from CrowdStrike about who the actors are. If they're nation state actors, who these actors are, non-nation state actors, right? Whether it's verified or unverified malicious confidence, how big of a threat is this? Is this a known threat? That sort of thing. So this one command right here is where we're, one command right here, and there we go, is where we're asking and sending an IP address to CrowdStrike, and we're asking for the type, what type of this is, who the actor is, the raw information about this, and then we're going to take the threat level, we're going to rename that as malicious confidence. So as a high, medium, low, and then we can put that information in here. So you can, I can, we can copy this code and you can paste it and play with it. But basically what it's doing is it's looking at all the various outliers, all the various issues, and it's given for you an outlier diagram. I'd rather see, quite frankly, this raw data here. So let me just take this code, if you don't mind, and let me go ahead and copy it in. Again, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing everything and I'm going through all my logs and I'm parsing out the IP address. Okay. And I'm filtering where the IP address is not 0.0.0 or 127.0.0.1. And then I'm doing a lookup on all of these IP addresses. And I'm trying to see if I have any. There we go. There's one where there's a malicious confidence of low, and I can see the information about it. I can again see the IP address. Don't have an actor per se. There's another low one. Okay. So you can again take advantage of this CrowdStrike through our product. And that's what we're trying to point out to you. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? Well, in that case, let's get you ready for the exam. You're going to take the exam. I need you to log out of our training environment. Why? Because we want to make sure you get logged in, you get credit for this in your name. Right now, you're logged in as training plus analyst, some crazy number. That user has passed those exams before. We want to make sure you, with your name, get credit. So how do you log out? Again, if you need to, you open up this navigation panel. You click where your username is down here and you click sign out, and that's going to sign you out. Then you go to your company's Sumo Logic environment where you can log in by your name and you log back in. Close all these up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click on the Home tab, click on Certification, click on Get Certified. And then it Get Certified, you're going to see there's a section here called Get Certified. By the way, these are our self-paced courses. This is where the information is for all of our classes as far as the recordings and stuff like that. So if you want to listen to the recording for this class, you can go into here. You can find this class, which there it is down here. You have to register, but you can see the recording for this class. You can see the slides and all that fun stuff. And again, this is kind of handy because the exam is open book, open note, open slides. All right. But as far as the certification exam, here it is. Get certified. And we want the cloud security monitoring and analytics exam. And you can register. It's instantaneous for free. Take the exams for free. And before you start, there are 22 questions, not 30 questions, only 22. You're going to have 16 minutes to complete it. And the passing score is only 70. It's not 75. Again, open book, open notes. When I click next, it's going to take me to that exam. By the way, if you would, don't click next yet. Just watch me for a second here. And when I click Start Assessment, if I scroll down on this UI screen, click the spot that will open the Manage Parameter Settings. Okay, this is not a quite trick question. I could click here or I could click here. We've got this, so it'll answer both of those as true. So I don't care which one you click, but you should be good. Question number 2, the function # determines the distance between two different latitudes and longitudes. Great, wonderful. I'm going to scroll down. There's a couple things I want to point out here to you. Just to be fair, bear with me a second. Here we go. Here are the steps to create the land speed query. Put them in the right order. Yeah, that's the one I told you about, right? And then there's one other one I want to point out here to you right here. Okay. Which of the following are advantages of using a scheduled view to check all incoming things for malicious intent? Scheduled views take advantage of continuous query. That statement is true. Scheduled views need to re-ingest the data. That is false. That's the false one. Faster response time. That is true. Pre-aggregated scheduled views are cost effective. That is also true. So the only one's false here is the re-ingest the data. Now, I'm going to scroll to the end. Obviously, I didn't answer all the questions. Obviously, I didn't pass, but now I can see what questions I got right, what questions I got wrong. And then most importantly, don't forget when you pass to click this submit button so that it adds it to your profile here. And so that you can see what certification exams you've passed. You can see your certificate. You can also then add them to your profile. And last but not least, you can take the certification exams, all right, and you can copy them and you can send them to us, or actually there's a form we fill out, and you can get your Uber Eats voucher. So let me go and grab that forms link again. We will put it in the chat box. So you can fill out that form, attach your two, your yesterday's certification, today's certification, and we'll send you 2 Uber Eats vouchers if you passed them both. Okay. So that's that as far as the exam is concerned. What questions have you? Any questions? Well, that being said, let me turn on my video one more time and say goodbye properly. Obviously, we'll be here for the next hour while you're taking the exam. But again, if there's anything we can do, please feel free to reach out, help us out. But we want to thank you for taking the time and being with us today. And we hope you had a great day, and we hope to see you in a class again real soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.